Here we go again, back for another one of those rock stopping beats. Oh man,
This is one I was very excited for. One of my favorite YouTube channels, Understanding Conspiracy. Paul Stobbs, the Nephilim look like clowns guy. He's got a whole series on that, and it sounds absurd at first, but give the man his moment in this episode, and you'll be re-questioning everything you think you know.
like Tom said, he told me about Paul Stobbs. The Nephilim are clowns, and it sounds ridiculous, but it's almost like a clickbait, because when you actually start hearing him speak, he's well researched. He knows his stuff. You know, I don't know if Nephilims are clowns, but after having a nice conversation with Paul, it kind of seems like they are. So I hope you guys enjoy the conversation that Tom and I had with Paul Stobbs.
All right, we've got Paul Stobbs, whose YouTube series is mainly the Nephilim look like clowns, and it's one I'm very familiar with. I've seen just about every video. This is a very extensive, and it sounds a little goofy at first topic, but honestly, once you hear this guy out, you're going to have a deeper understanding of some crazy stuff. So why don't we start off with what the Nephilim are to someone who might not be familiar with what that is.
Sure, good a place to start than any, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
So the Nephilim, fundamentally, very quickly, are the offspring of fallen angels who mated with human women. You can understand the meaning of the word Nephilim through the etymology, through the Hebrew understanding of the word. It has two root words, Nephil and Nephal. Nephil, it basically means tyrannical ruler or giant, and Nephal means to fall in a various ways and applications. So falling, feller, fall down, to fall, fallen, all the falls basically come under that category of Nephal. So if you put those two words together, you get basically the plural for Nephilim, which basically means tyrannical giant rulers of a fallen nature. A lot of people do make the mistake of thinking, because the word fall is involved, they think it must have something to do with fallen angels, so the Nephilim are fallen angels, but that's pretty much a misunderstanding which needs to be corrected, I think. They are specifically the offspring of angels who mixed with human women.
So yes, there's a lot of cultures that kind of talk about some sort of like a demigod or semi-divine heroes, or the men of renown, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely,
your work basically says that all these like supernatural long-living kings or hybrid kings, giants, like I said, the men of renown, are hybrid beings between some sort of a supernatural entity and human women.
That's correct. Yeah, so that's the basis of my thesis. I mean, I wasn't really a religious person growing up. You know, I came at this originally into the conspiracy world through all the New Age stuff. The Mayan calendar, end of the world 2012 phenomena was what kind of sparked my curiosity into questioning things and looking into rabbit holes and going down my journey, you know. But through that process, I found the truth to be in the biblical perspective, and I kind of started doing a bit of a deep dive into biblical history from about 2014. And that research led me to understand this basic biblical history, which seems to be not really talked about in the churches, or not necessarily understood, or not considered as important as other parts of the Bible, you know. And a lot of this information does come from the book of Enoch, First Enoch. And there's much debate about whether or not that should be considered canon or not. But the book of Enoch is quoted in the Bible, even by the apostles. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, as far as I'm concerned. But the history laid out in the book of Enoch, is a dark history about the time before the flood. And, you know, if you really look into it and look at cultures all around the world, not just through the biblical lens, but every culture, they all have a very similar story to what was echoed in the book of Enoch. This tale of humanity corrupting themselves in the most heinous of ways, making deals with creatures that came from the heavens, you know, fiery flying serpents or rainbow serpents or feathered serpents of some kind, creating cults dedicated to them and their demigod offspring, and these half angel or god hybrid human monsters became these brutal dictators who took over all the kingships over humanity and just furthered the corruption. Many people emulated them, wanted to be like them, so that just forced even more humans to corrupt themselves even further in a hope to be like the Nephilim and their gods. And there was nothing but evil in man's hearts continuously up until the flood, and it kind of gives this explanation as to why a flood was even necessary. Because this is the problem, as a Christian. Now, as someone who didn't grow up in the Christian faith, these were stumbling blocks for me. What kind of God would flood the entire earth and kill millions of people? It seemed like such a cruel, arbitrary thing to do. What kind of loving, caring God would do such a thing? But then when you actually look into the history of what was going on then, it was a mercy more than anything, because if God hadn't done what he did and saved Noah, who was basically the only human left who hadn't corrupted himself physically, not only just spiritually but physically, we wouldn't be here. That hard reset was necessary just to save humanity and mankind. So that's the basic biblical history which I learned that kind of set me up to then question, well, what would a hybrid between a seraphim class fiery serpent like being mixed with a human actually look like? And I came at it through the New Age perspective, like I said, which means I was akin to do kind of a psychedelic exploration who kind of came with the package. I was doing the work to try and get connections with the spirit realm through means which might not necessarily be the best way of doing it, but they certainly worked. Things like DMT and heavy amounts of mushrooms and microdosing LSD and taking doing trip reports with the rest of them. And I understood there was a spiritual realm, so it was very clear to me that was there because I kind of seen it with my own eyes. But I'd always had this research that people kept finding machine elves or DMT jesters of some kind there, and I suppose in a way I was kind of looking for them myself. But while I was doing these things, I never actually met any of the entities. But when I gave myself over to Christ and kind of was born again and stopped doing drugs and sobered up, that's when these things really started to manifest to me and come clear that they were actually real and certainly there. So I had my own visions of these DMT jesters. I had my own vision of a huge, enormous, black and white, fractal patterned, wide-grinned, purple glowing-eyed monster jester thing. For no reason. It was just a random flash to me years after the fact of quitting all these drugs, And it certainly felt like in hindsight, well, it seems like now that I had stopped doing all of the things the demons enjoy, they were then coming for me. It was kind of a if we can't have you, nobody can type of situation. And having that vision of that jester, seeing it for myself, and then researching the biblical perspective and understanding that it was the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that got stuck on a veil just beyond our perception on Earth and became demons, then there's something there. There's something to do with clowns and jesters and the Nephilim. There's certainly a link. So I kind of sat on that for a while, and then in 2016 there was the clown sightings, which the whole media had just blown up with and was showing everywhere. These menacing people stood on street corners, scaring people dressed like clowns, like really terrifying, demonic-looking clowns. And I had enough research into the occult and how the agenda works to understand that nothing gets on the media that isn't controlled. So if they're showing us clowns in this mass media sense, every single news station is picking up on it and pointing the camera at it, that must mean something. That must be a symbol of some kind, because nothing's by accident with these people when it comes to the mainstream. So that kind of sparked my interest, and I started to really dive into the clown as a symbol throughout history, and where does it come from, and is it related in any way to the Nephilim? And there was no prior work done about this topic that I could find. I saw one person making a mockumentary conspiracy theorist type thing, where he was pretending to be a conspiracy theorist, making us look silly and stupid, talking about the Nephilim, saying, the Nephilim had red hair and white skin, so the only explanation is that the Nephilim were interdimensional killer clowns from outer space, Great. And he was making a joke, but I realized there's actually something to that, So as I was saying, I began this journey in 2016. I started a series kind of voicing my thoughts about this concept of the Nephilim being akin to something we call the clown in Visage, and is the clown in some way linked? And I'm like 43 episodes into the series now, and my work has become a deep anthropological study of ancestor spirit worship practices and rituals, who all venerate demons and the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, and they all dress something similar to, or with features that we would consider clownish, in order to be possessed by these ancestor spirits, which are the Nephilim. And it turns out, through my own research and history, which we can get into, but to summarize, we have invented, through secret societies in the West, their own version of an ancestor spirit worship ritual garb to be possessed by the Nephilim, and that costume is called a clown.
Yep, you nailed it, and I know that's what you've been getting across in your series, and it's all very comprehensive work. You connect a lot of things that no one would have really thought of, really piece it together. Something I wanted to touch on too is how you basically brought it back to secret societies, and that Freemasons, and they're kind of the origins of the circus, and the circus is mimicking like what kind of happens in the psychedelic and spiritual realms, and obviously the exaggerated features of the clown is definitely like a caricature of a giant with the giant feet, or sometimes giants or clowns on stilts getting into the tiny clown car, or holding a little tiny umbrella, tiny hat. Sometimes they even have the elongated skulls. And when you see the archaeological discoveries that have been suppressed about giant findings, they often do have like 2 rows of teeth, a big wide grin, 6 fingers, usually red hair, obviously the giant stature, and then
Kanduar.
yeah, exactly. Many examples of exactly what you would describe is a big, red-headed, pale, kind of like grotesque, big grin smile being that we kind of have an inherent fear of, just like people who are afraid of spiders or snakes or something. Like, as soon as I came across your work, it immediately was clicking to me too. Like, oh man, that's exactly why people just have this inherent fear of clowns, because this thing was like a predator. It's somewhere in our DNA to be like, no, I don't like that at all. Like, just pure terror. I'm sure you've seen the pictures before where it looks like the Rothschilds family has a bit of an elongated skull, and we know some of these elites and secret societies are about tracing their bloodline back to be, of this pure kingly bloodline that ultimately leads back to some sort of a mythological character or, demigod king who was ruling at some point. And if you think that they were never fully wiped out, and as the Nephilim had offsprings with humans, like the DNA would have, kind of like gotten weeded out, but there would be those with a small percentage of it still left who felt like they had the right to rule through lineage, and they do everything they can to keep that blood pure, or gain possession or get possessed by these entities through these secret society rituals, or making us, kind of participate in it without really knowing that's what we're doing, but they're getting the desired result. And I wanted to say too, did you see the newest thing? Apparently in Florida here, there was a sighting of giant shadow creatures in the mall, and they shut down the mall. They shut down the airspace. There was the most police presence we've ever seen. Mike was just talking to me about it the other day, and what I find interesting is that the term Nephilim is now being popularized. Like, before, most people wouldn't even know what that was. Like, they'd just be like, oh, a giant alien or whatever. But the term Nephilim is now trending. And you were saying, like, the clown trend was almost like an infiltration on a subconscious level, or crossing over into our reality in the physical, with these people wanting to dress up like clowns and like cause fear and stuff. But like, now to actually bring the term Nephilim to the public, like, nothing is pushed on the public unless it's for a reason. So they might really be trying to bring the Nephilim back into consciousness.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, on that current event, I saw in my own Telegram group people were posting about it, and I saw, it's like a from a top of an apartment building view of all these police cars, just hundreds of them gathered into one spot for supposedly a couple of teenagers having a fight with some fireworks or something. It's like the cover story for that. But yeah, I'm seeing it all coming out that people are claiming they witnessed giants of some kind there, like I said, shadow beings. And Whether that's true or not, I do believe there is some kind of externalization of the hierarchy, revelation of the method type thing going on right now, where they are trying to get into the public consciousness, the concepts like the Nephilim. So I'm hardly surprised Nephilim as a word is now trending suddenly on Twitter, because it wasn't even that long ago that even Tucker Carlson was talking about the Nephilim with Roseanne Barr. And, I made my own video about that, saying, why the hell is Tucker Carlson saying the word Nephilim all of a sudden? You know what I mean? And people were furious that I didn't know who Roseanne was, as well as a British person who doesn't watch American sitcoms,
That is surprising.
I called her some lady or something like that, and people were outraged. But, the point is that they are saying these words now to, basically normie audiences. They are bringing it to the forefront of the conversation, because yes, I think 2016 was a precursor event to symbolize the Nephilim are returning. So they caricatured that message using the symbol of a clown, which represents Nephilim, by saying creepy clown sightings everywhere. Well, that was a kind of a predictive programming symbolic message to say the Nephilim sightings are going to start soon. People are going to start seeing Nephilim again. But they covered it with a creepy clown sightings type message, because that's what the clown does symbolize. It symbolizes the Nephilim. It is an occult created symbol, perfectly crafted to caricature and represent demons, basically. So when you do see clowns anywhere in media, especially like an event like, the 2016 clown sightings, they're sending a message to the initiated, first of all, get ready, they're coming back. That was the message. And to the profane masses, it is kind of this getting them used to citing such things. So if real sightings do start to happen of these entities manifesting physical somehow, I'm not sure how that's possible necessarily. If that does start to happen in like a thinning of the veil type way, then they've kind of already been pre-programmed to understand that, yes, they'll have a clown-like visage to them when they do manifest, So absolutely, I agree with you. There's definitely something going on. I mean, so I just saw on Twitter someone posted, literally before I started talking to you, I saw that post where it says, it was the conspiracy pilled guys had posted the top 3 things trending on Twitter right now are our most talked about topics, and it's aliens, Nephilim, and Antichrist. I think those were the top 3 trending right now. It's just weird times we live in. What a great start to a new year as well.
Honestly.
I think 2014 is going to get trippy.
You mentioned a second ago about them being able to manifest into physical beings. Is it possible for the Nephilim at all to manifest in dreams, or maybe are ghosts, or is there a way that they can manifest themselves at all, as opposed to just being, like the clown image? Can they physically manifest, or maybe in your dreams?
The point is that they don't have physical bodies anymore, but they do continue to be a spirit, trapped without a body, without senses, without a mouth, a nose, eyes, hands, or ears. They can't experience anything. This is the phenomenon of demonic possession. The whole point of demonic possession is that these entities want to feel again. They want to experience things again. So they do that vicariously through your senses. So that's why they possess you, and that's why they get you to generally do things which are destructive to your own body, because they're seeking the pleasure from it by doing it vicariously through your senses. I don't think they can physically manifest. I don't think that's possible. I do think there may be cryptids around, left over from the antediluvian age and just after, who are physical entities who aren't dead yet, who maybe have managed to survive until this present day in immortal type bodies, or perhaps they've done what we do and just generationally procreated for generation after generation and maintained the species. But you have to remember, in the antediluvian age, after the Nephilim were created, there were people who wanted to be like the Nephilim. And that's described in the book of Jasher as a time just before the flood where mankind began to genetically engineer themselves. It's called the mixing of kinds in the book of Jasher, and animals were being spliced with other animals. Humans were being spliced with animalistic features too. And a lot of hybrid creatures were created during that time. And I do believe that's where we get phenomena like Mothman or Dogman or Lizard People. These are X-Men. They used to be men. They're mutants. They are humans who have changed themselves to be like their gods and kings of the day, which were the Nephilim. They wanted to be stronger, faster, better, more hardy and durable to withstand the brutal environment they lived in, which was full of giants, cannibalistic, horrible monsters. So I do think people do see physical manifestations of creatures through the cryptid phenomena, but I don't think they're experiencing true Nephilim. The true Nephilim, not these faux Nephilim, are the offspring of fallen angels who mated with human women, and they became disembodied spirits when they were killed just before the flood. It's said that the punishment for the angels who did this was to watch their children kill each other. And that's what happened. They all fought each other in bloody, brutal battles for power. And they also turned on their own parents, the angels, and tried to kill them as well in like some kind of weird hubristic ploy to be the only gods and kings and rulers over humanity. But obviously the angels are way better than them and more powerful than them, and they had to kill their own children as a result. It was quite a horrible punishment, to be honest. It's described as that you'll have to watch your beloved ones kill each other. And so the Nephilim actually became demons then. They became disembodied spirits before the flood. And then just after that event, that's when the humans changed themselves. And then the flood happened. So historically speaking, maybe there are descendants of Nephilim, yes, but the hardcore originals, the half-bloods, half and half, they were wiped out first. Now, it does say that the Nephilim did have their own children by mating with human women, so that would create a quarter hybrid Nephilim, and they were called the Nephil. And then the Nephil had their own children, and they were called the Elio, and then the Elio had their own children, and they were called the Eliud. So there are iterations of Nephilim that get more watered down through each passing generation, and they probably changed their features a little bit, but fundamentally stayed the same. I have postulated that maybe Bigfoot is a manifestation of the Elio or the Eliud, these lower level ones. And it does appear that, Bigfoot sightings, they have some kind of weird magical psychic property about them, where they can confuse people mentally. They can seem to teleport in and out of pocket dimensions through trees, and they do seem to have some kind of divine, weird, psychedelic nature to them, other than just being a hairy beast man, So I do think there's something to be said for Bigfoot to be perhaps the descendants of the Nephilim, which is a physical manifestation still around. But if a Nephilim creature dies and they get disembodied, they're stuck on Earth. Then they become demons, and they cannot manifest physically again. I do believe the closest thing you can get to a manifestation of a Nephilim, a dead Nephilim, a demon, is that they often appear as shadow people or shadow entities. And I think this is because people, if they, let's say, are in sleep paralysis or in some sort of state, a hypnagogic state of some kind, just before they fall asleep, or the brain's in that mode where it's transferring to the dreamscape, or, release it, or DMT is going through the body naturally or something, I do think that veil gets thin enough for our perceptions to then perceive them. But because we aren't supposed to see them, and our perceptions are so limited, I think we see shadow entities. We can't really see their true nature. We just see like a shadowy blur type thing. I do think that happens. I think that's a real phenomenon that's been well documented. But if that same individual who's seeing the shadow entity, I believe if they were to open that perception even further by suddenly taking 3 crack pipe hits of DMT or something, suddenly that shadow entity would become an extremely psychedelic looking clown monster. Do you get what I mean? Mm-hmm. But until they do that, all they can vaguely perceive with their eyes is like a shadowy monster of some kind. So as far as manifestations, that's all I'm aware of. I do think as well they are working on some kind of transhumanist AI agenda,
yes,
to create brand new vessels, immortal bodies with a working, functional artificial brain that can house consciousness. So I think that's what AI is working towards, and within an immortal robotic body, which is what transhumanism is working towards. And once they create and master that vessel, it will not be for us. It's promised for us. It's promised that we'll get to live forever and be like gods in these new immortal bodies. But as soon as we create them and switch them on, you best believe this legion of disembodied entities are just going to lap up that opportunity and take them. They've been waiting for thousands of years. they will take that chance, you know. So if there ever is a robot overlord takeover of humanity, it's actually the Nephilim returning. That's what it truly is. It's nothing new. It's just a different skin. That's all.
It seems like this would be a good time to ask this question. I wanted to get your opinion on if the Nephilim connect in any way to. I'm sure you've seen all this UAP or UFO disclosure that's been going on in the States. And you mentioned Tucker Carlson, and there's a couple of famous clips that are going around social media the last month about him talking about things that he knows and things that he's seen. And if you read between the lines, he's basically saying that he's seen and knows things that lead him to believe that they're angels and demons. And I just wanted to get your thought on that, and if the Nephilim would connect or could connect in any way to that. I know it's kind of a roundabout way of asking and getting there, but...
You're right, and I think if you've been in the game for long enough now, sincerely researching the truth of movement and the truth, and you've gone down all the rabbit holes, you have to get to the logical conclusion that extraterrestrials are not from outer space. They are very terrestrial, in fact. They are super terrestrial. You know what I mean? They have been here the entire time, and they are the principalities described of in Ephesians. You know, they are the spiritual wickedness in high places. They are the fallen ones, the watchers, the ones that have rebelled, are in rebellion against God. And they are the ones posing today as our alien saviors when they do manifest, I imagine, is going to be the agenda. And they have their spiritual potentates, their children, just behind the veil below them as well, working in a spiritual sense, you know. And the aim is, yes, to convince the world that when they finally manifest and become physical in the world, you know, and visible once more and reveal themselves, that we'll be deceived into what they actually are. And I imagine they will come as, it's described in the Bible as angels of light, but they'll come as earthly extraterrestrial saviors of mankind, you know, offering wisdoms and technologies that will transcend us out of our pathetic flesh prison bodies into new light bodies or something, and then will bring us into a new age of enlightenment for humanity, and they'll promise us all sorts of things, you know. But this is nothing new. They are certainly what Tucker Carlson is drip feeding out, you know, this idea that, yeah, they are interdimensional angels and demons rather than extraterrestrial aliens, you know. But this is another thing we have to be extremely careful as truthers as well, because you know, as conspiracy theorists, there is this plot basically to make us, the more I research it, the more I'm kind of getting to this conclusion where we're supposed to discover that they're demons. Do you get what I mean? Like, the whole alien stuff is meant to be discovered as a lie. We're supposed to realize that they're actually ancient beings from the past or something, not from space. And then we're supposed to be angry at those who have lied to us about aliens. It's kind of the purposefully revealing all the lies now, externalizing the hierarchy of the truth, but the controlling how the truth gets out so they can direct us to their conclusions or solutions to that truth. And it will be the doctrine of Lucifer, basically. And that was the plan mapped out by Albert Pike himself in Morals and Dogma, you know, to reveal the true light of Lucifer. This is what Helena Blavatsky's, you know, who obviously created the Lucis Trust, who and made that newspaper called Lucifer the Light Bearer. You know, even they talk about this. We need to get the public on board with the way we think, and to do that, you know, we will make them lose faith in their leaders by revealing how corrupt and evil they are. But that's the point. They're supposed to do evil things and be corrupt to be ousted and discovered. You know, so it's all kind of like a double blind bluff thing going on. So, you know, people theorize, you know, oh, well, aliens are going to come and reveal themselves to us and everyone's going to be fooled into thinking aliens are our saviors. But then the more I think about it, the more I think, no, we're all going to know exactly what we're dealing with, and there will be people who will accept them either way. And that's what they're aiming for people to accept that, yeah, they're demons, but they're not that bad. That's how it's going to be sold. The real bad guys are the Christians who have lied about the truth of Jesus. Jesus was just there to spread the message of Christ consciousness to help mankind ascend. And then the evil Catholic Church or something, or the evil societies created him as a real man instead, or something. You know, they'll basically give the Gnostic worldview. The Gnostic religion is what they'll try and sell. So that way Christians will then go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So they can still feel like they're going along with the truth, but it's the Christ within you, not put your faith in Christ to save us, you know, things like that. So I think it's a weird time, and we have to be extremely careful with certain conspiracies, because I do think they've been placed there for us to unravel on purpose.
Oh yeah.
You know, so yeah, what do you think?
I'm
Give me
with
your
you.
opinion.
I'm with you on that. Well, like you connected it to the Freemasons, and like we said, the secret societies at the highest levels are about this truth, and you know, venerating it and being proud of their whatever so-called relation to these beings that they claim. So, and if they are really communicating with / possessed by / you know, under the control of very ancient, thousands of years old being, they're going to be pretty clever at manipulating their prey and coming up with psyop on top of psyop. And I do think that we are supposed to discover some of it. And I originally was a big David Icke guy when I was younger, and the reptilian thing, and like I think that kind of is allowed to be out, obviously, because it leads you just enough astray. It's like there for the people who can clearly see that something is operating against the greater good of mankind, and like there's clearly a spiritual battle. Like when you've been researching things long enough, it becomes the simple conclusion, like, yeah, there's good forces, there's bad forces, God exists, the devil exists, and everything is kind of simpler than it's made to be. But then the whole idea of like, yeah, Gnostic stuff or the Matrix and the interdimensional reptilians and all these layers to it, but they leave out the one thing of, yeah, God, Jesus, it's actually demons and angels, and it's just the simple tale that's already been told to us. But if they can just lead us astray just a little bit, just enough to not have faith in religion and be like, actually, no, it's these beings from another dimension and they're using the fucking Matrix and harvesting our energy and all this other, you know, trails just to keep us a little distracted for those who can see. But yeah, one way or another, they're going to try and bring this back into consciousness under their own rules. Yeah, controlled opposition. It's very hard to tell, but as long as you do have the, I guess, understanding of the true nature of this fucking spiritual battle, then...
Well, that's it, yeah. This is why I kind of do the whole clown thing as well. It's more of a know your enemy situation, yes, and understand how they operate. Because they're sneaky, you know, these things do work with symbols in order to deceive us and get us to worship them without realizing that that's what we're doing most of the time, you know. And you know, if we get back to the clowns maybe, and we can explore this concept of just how sneaky they actually are, and how they do co-opt our entertainment industries, for example, in order to drip feed us symbols and messages from their own way of doing things to get us ready for the future, whatever it is, the future agendas. But you know, clowns are, for example, it's something fun for the kids. When you actually look at the history of a clown, they were literally based on demons from their very inception in the West. Okay. Harlequin, for example, which was the first proto-clown in theatre, was modeled after Helikins, who is a French wild man, which equates to a giant hairy beast with a club with a band of demons who follows him. And turns out all throughout Europe, they all venerate the wild man once a year in their own rituals, and they dress up like hairy, terrifying horned beasts. Well, that's who Harlequin's based off of, and who was introduced into the Commedia dell'arte movement going throughout Europe at that time. The Commedia dell'arte were infamous for creating stock characters. So a stock character is basically in every character that people can relate to, no matter where you go. So every country they went to and performed in, they understood who the soldier was, or who the rich man was, or who the slave or the servant was, you know, or the daughter of the rich man, the police officer. These recognizable characters are stock, you know. So they introduced in the 1600s this new stock character called Harlequin. And like I said, they introduced him because they knew everybody would recognize the wild man when they saw it. And he was supposed to be the demonic influence in the play. He represented the demon, the stock character of a demon. And then Harlequin developed further into the Commedia dell'arte movement, into British pantomime throughout the next 200 years. And he went through French pantomime as well. And Clown was developing alongside of him. So Harlequin and Clown were both servants of the rich man. And Clown wasn't what he is today then, because they didn't need two demonic characters. They just had the one, which was Harlequin. But Harlequin stopped being so demonic by the 1800s, and he was more of a lovesick, doting idiot. So they replaced the demonic character for Clown instead, and they made Clown more demonic and more cheeky, more brutal, more slapstick comedy type, laughing at the audience, making fun of everybody, causing pain to everybody, cheeky character, you know, which is what Harlequin originally was, but stopped being. So Clown took over the role. So when Clown took over that role in the 1800s, it came with a costume change. Prior to this, the Clown dressed in boring white servant garbs from like an Elizabethan age, just plain white, ragged garb, you know, nothing special. But with his new role as the demonic character, it also came with a new demonic costume. And it was introduced, funnily enough, by the son of a very famous Freemason called Charles Dibdin. Charles Dibdin Sr. was one of the most famous musicians, playwrights, and theatre writers of the day. He was like a huge media mogul, you know. He was a superstar of the day, and he was a member of the Leicestershire Lodge number 2629, I think, or something like that. I've got the papers. I've found where he was. I found a eulogy dedicated to him within the lodge and everything. But his son, Charles Dibdin Jr., was given the privilege of running one of the finest theatres of the day in London, you know, Sadler's Wells, where everybody went to see the Clown and the pantomime perform. And once he got himself into the position of power where he controlled everything about the plays that went on there, he changed the costume of a clown and dressed him up in this psychedelic, colourful, monstrous-looking thing, you know, which is worlds apart from the original clown costume. It's like, where did you get that idea from? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you change it so drastically, you know? And it's never explained anywhere, but if you just pay attention, it's quite obvious where they got the influence from. They got it from India, and specifically the Rakshasa demons of India. And they got it because Charles Dibdin Sr. loved India. He traveled back and forth a few times. He was even going to go live there, but he cancelled his trip because of bad weather and decided against it in the end. But he was ready to go, you know. And the only reason he had any connection to India whatsoever is because his brother, Thomas Dibdin, was a sailor in the British Navy who was currently colonizing East India in the East India Company of the time. And that was the time of British colonization of India. It's when Indian iconography and influence was coming back to England during that time. And I do believe Charles Dibdin brought back with him, as a traveling man, as a Freemason, knowledge of the demonic ancestor spirit worship cultures of that region. And obviously incorporating it into their own demonic veneration rituals, I believe, as a media mogul of the industry of the day, he found a way to insert demonic iconography into one of the most popular mediums of the day, theatre. And that's still the same thing that's done today. The modern music industry today is rife with demonic-looking people and characters and messages and themes, because that's what they do, you know. And they did it then during the theatre as well. So Joseph Grimaldi, this famous actor that everybody loved and thought was hilarious, was now dressing like this psychedelic monster from India called a Rakshasa demon, and they called it Clown. And he acted like one too, you know, like a demon. And that's it. So both the Clown and Harlequin are modeled after demons of different regions of the earth. The Wild Man of Europe for Harlequin, the Rakshasa demon of India. And I've got the images. I've showed it in many videos on my channel. It's quite clearly influenced by and just a direct copy of the outfits worn by the demons who guard the temples of Thailand, for example, or India, or the Philippines, or anywhere. In Bali is another really good example. Anywhere where Hinduism has got its influence there, you know. So yeah, even historically speaking, the Clown is literally a representation of a demon. You don't even have to get into the Nephilim, you know, like I do. It's always been there, always has been, and Freemason influence has been there since the beginning, you know, in terms of representing the Clown as a demon. It was done through members of the fraternity. And never mind the fact that even after that, that image of a clown became the norm. And then circuses were created by rich businessmen in America after this. And one of the most famous of those who really, really, really got the freak show involved with the circus and got clowns heavily involved in the traveling circus, created the three-ring big top, was P.T. Barnum. Now, Barnum, Phineas Taylor Barnum, I think his full name is, so he was a member of the Odd Fellows, a secret society whose, funnily enough, their logo, their symbol is three rings tied together. And he created the three-ring circus, you know. So secret societies have been there since its inception. And if especially the American circus specifically, because Freemasons had such a huge influence on building that land, you know, or founding that land, shall we say, or being involved with creating the buildings involved during that time. And they were all trying to build Solomon's temple back in the day, and that they're kind of obsessed with Solomon in that respect. And you'll find that the circus, which was, I said, really popularized and created to be what it is today by a member of the Order of the Odd Fellows, well, everything about it is occult. It's, first of all, the ringmaster dresses identical to the Grand Worshipful Master of a Freemason lodge. The clothes are identical, top hat, waistcoat and all, you know, and long-tailed coats. With the cane, it is literally the leader of a lodge of Freemasonry who is the ringmaster of a circus. And what does the ringmaster do but orchestrate the clowns, orchestrate the ritual, which is in the middle of this sigilled ring. He is the master of the ring. He is the lord of the ringmaster. He is a Solomon analog at the same time, because Solomon used the ring to make demons build his temple, you know, and that's kind of why they consider that so important. So, you know, the ringmaster orchestrating the clowns is no different than the Grand Worshipful Master in a lodge orchestrating the ritual summoning the Nephilim demons who they work closely with. So it's all just allegory, it's all just symbols. And I've even got a book about this that shows that they all the circuses, all of them were run by Freemasons. And you'll notice each of these people in the past, it was like the Ringling Bros. Okay, and they say, oh, well, they're all brothers, so that makes sense. But that's a brother is what you call a member of the fraternity. You are a brother if you're a Freemason. So they're telling you there, you know, these are the Ringling Brothers, the Ringling Freemasons, basically. And they themselves, every last member of them, they were all Freemasons. And they all joined together, 10 circuses joined together, all of them run by Freemasons. And they put on a huge spectacle. P.T. Barnum was involved with this, with Bailey as well. And they basically put on this show called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, which was huge, massive, covered 3 giant rings, and it was just a spectacle of elephants and animals and all sorts of things going on. And this show telling the tale of, obviously, King Solomon and this pagan queen, basically. And every costume, every set design, everything for this show, all run and designed by Freemason associated companies. The same Freemason run companies who make the costumes for the rituals in the lodges made the costumes for this show at the circus as well. Circuses would not exist as they do today without Freemasonry. And what they have done is transferred the tiny rituals they do on a small scale, venerating the Nephilim, in the lodges. They've transferred it onto a grand public spectacle scale in the circus. The only difference is the public who pay to go and see this and give their energy over to the ritual think it's just a bit of fun for the family. They don't know what they're watching. They don't understand the symbols involved. But the initiated, they go there understanding that this is amazing. Normally I have to see these rituals done on such a small scale, but look at it here. Look, here it is in this fabulous, you know, huge grand spectacle. I'm so amazed. They were loving it, you know, and the public don't even know. So where circus, you know, if you ever see a circus with clowns everywhere, you know, it's a giant invocation ritual to basically summon Nephilim. It's exactly what it is. And you're just not supposed to know that. It's occult. It's been hidden, you know, in plain sight, as they like to do. But yeah, through and through, everything about clowns and everything about circuses, completely occulted, Freemasonic, devil, satanic worshipping, demon worshipping representations. I mean, the Shriners, which are a level above Freemasonry, They all have a clown sect. You have to dress like a clown if you become a Freemason, if you become a Shriner.
Yeah, and I understand one of the
What the
highest.
hell does a fraternity that's supposed to be based off Middle Eastern symbolism and Middle Eastern religions, as a joke supposedly? What the hell are they doing dressing up like clowns? You know
Exactly.
what I mean? A Western clown. It boggles the mind until you understand. Well, if they work with Nephilim, which are demons, now they get to dress like demons and channel demons publicly without the public even realizing it. And what do? They go to dying children in their hospitals that they run for free, supposedly. How generous of them. And what these poor dying children, what do they have to see but these horrible clowns in front of them? And clowns elicit fear in children. Very rarely do they elicit laughter. And if they do, that's still energy to be harvested. So what, you know? But if it's kind of like these hospitals are giant loosh farms for these demon worshipping creeps to go dress like a demon, get possessed by a demon, go and terrify a dying child and let that demon within them feed off that energy. You know what I mean? It's messed up when you really start to look into this. It's not as innocent and loving and caring and just trying to make kids laugh like they all sell it. It's darker than that, and history proves it, as far as I'm concerned. And you know, you don't have to take my word for this. I've documented this on my channel clearly, historically. And then you look outside of Freemasonry and you realize, yeah, people have been dressing like clowns to channel Nephilim for millennia. You go to all these ancient ancestor spirit worship practices all over the earth on every single continent. These are like thousands of years old, these practices that have orally been passed down as tradition and haven't really changed much in thousands of years. And they dress in clownish featured clothing to be purposefully possessed by them. They will tell you that. We do this to get possessed by them. They will tell you openly that that's the point of why they dress this way, is to create a channel so we can communicate with demons. But they call them ancestors. That's the only difference. And they all dress like clowns. So all the Freemasons have done is taken these practices that have been done for thousands of years by all these other cultures and just made their own version, you know, and it looks like what we call a clown today. So yeah, I've gone on for a while there. I think I've made it clear though what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you guys
And
interject.
I was going to say, I know that one of the highest Masonic orders is also called the Royal Order of the Jesters. So what is that all about?
Absolutely.
And with your work, like you said, all these different cultures, and even going back like way before the clown would have even been a thing, like ancient cultures talking about and like portraying these like black and white checkered and like fractal looking, literally like clown or like mime like things that people report in modern day trips of DMT and stuff. And a personal anecdote, a good close friend of mine took a lot of DMT and he was hitting it like a literal like nicotine vape pen. So he was just like constantly thinning that veil, and he ended up going completely crazy. He's good now. He turned around and turned his life over to Christ big time, which was not surprising after where he was going. We were concerned about him. Like he's always made some like really trippy like clown art from his trips, and a lot of them are just like super mime like the diamond shaped slit eyes and just black and white, super cartoony and like carnival like atmosphere. And as he started doing it more and more though, they became like much more schizophrenic, like scribbled, scary looking, like shadow being just deranged insanity from some very lighthearted, clowny looking cartoony art. So it's almost like they slowly started to reveal themselves more and more. And the Freemasons,
Yeah.
the Freemasons are actually responsible for DMT being synthesized, I'm pretty sure. And just like psychedelics in general has always been something that they were kind of like behind. And I'm sure it's because they've, you know, dabbled with these rituals throughout time to go into the shamanic realms or spirit realms where they could access these beings that aren't around or commonly available to us without those type of, you know, trips or cheap entries into the spirit realm where we're not supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all know about the '60s counterculture, the Cultural Revolution,
Yep.
the introduction of LSD to the public, and all these type of things. It got in full motion then, and we know the CIA played their part in making that happen. So this is all orchestrated, absolutely. The more portals they can open to the Nephilim, the better, as far as they're concerned. Whether that's through drugs or through making people dress like clowns, either works. To be honest, what happens in the physical world has detrimental effects in the spiritual. They're not separate from one another. They're interconnected in deep, profound ways, and they know that. We just don't know that, so they play on it. They play in our ignorance. But in terms of like the whole DMT experience, I mean, like I said, you understand this because you have this friend who does it. I don't know if you have your own experiences in this. I know I do, but there's this raging, terrifying ignorance that comes along with people who dabble in these type of things. They think it's all Jungian archetypical symbolism created by the collective unconscious. It's Gnostic stuff, if you want to make it all, summarize it and kind of paint it with a broad brush. But they think it's all a reflection of the self, anything they experience there. They don't understand that when they meet a jester there, they're actually interacting with a separate entity to them with its own desires, wants, needs, and consciousness, who has a very historical reason for being there. There's a history to why they are currently there. You're not just imagining this, and that can be basically proven through the simple fact that people see the same thing. And people would say, well, that's what the collective unconscious is proving. It's like, not necessarily, because they're incoherent with the messages. But one thing that we can kind of underlie it, if they're either telling you they are, I don't know, fifth dimensional ascended masters, or they are spirit guides, or they are aliens, or they are, I don't know, time travelers from a future where mankind has evolved, or something like that. They'll come up with any story necessary. They'll come in the same shape and form with a different message about what they truly are. But the core fundamental message they're spreading as an ideology is you are a god. And that is basically Satanism and Luciferianism at its core, and that's the first lie told to Adam and Eve by the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Ye will be as gods, your eyes shall be opened, if you just partake of the fruits of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't never mind what God says. All you have to do is just rebel and learn enough stuff, and you can be like a god. And that's basically what these entities all purport. It's the same religion, it's the same lie, but they lie. They're very dishonest about who they are. They'll just tell you what they know you will believe. Or what will work best for you, and that tells me that's a deception through and through. They are deceivers at the very core. But yeah, people see jesters, people see clowns. People see what they can only describe in the humanistic language as something akin to a jester of some form, and that's because the Nephilim look like clowns. That's what they're dealing with directly. They're dealing with a very serious, real entity, not just some reflection of the self in some stupid, naive way. Which, maybe I'm a bit harsh on Gnostics sometimes, or people who believe this philosophy, but I think I need to be harsh because there's very real history to back up what I'm saying here. It's not just something I'm making up off the cuff, and it's dangerous. It's a war zone. I think people also mistakenly believe that the DMT realm is a better place. It's better than where we are currently. It's a higher realm or something. It's the astral realm, it's the fractal dimension or something. It's the higher planes of consciousness. And that's just a lie. It's actually a lesser place than where we currently are. It's a step below us, not above. You fall into that place. You don't ascend into it, It's basically the plumbing of this world. It's the behind-the-scenes wiring and stuff like that behind the walls of this projection. It's the thing that's necessary. It has to be there. It's the coding that projects this world we currently live in with our bodies. But it's certainly not better than the place where we live with our bodies. It's a lesser realm. It's more two-dimensional. It's a lesser dimension, if anything, because it's a place where 3D embodied forms don't exist. The prize is us. It's where we are. The world that we live in, that we perceive with our senses, that God created for us, is wonderful. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's where we should be. It's what we should be appreciating. It's where our life is to live. These entities are trapped in this other place where they have no senses and no body. They hunger and thirst and have no means to quench or satisfy those hungers and thirsts. They are desperate to get back here into a body like us. They are jealous of us. They wish they could be us. They want to have a body like we do. They will take our body if we let them. And that's the point. So they'll deceive and lie and make anything up as long as it gives them access to you. That's the point of their game. So they can live vicariously through your senses. And if they can convince you to dress like a clown regularly or something, or perform regular rituals, and that they are there to help you because they're your spirit guides to help you reach a higher planes of consciousness and be like a god, if you believe all of that, then you're going to keep the portals open for them to continuously use you and drain you of everything you have. And once you're useless to them, once you discover the truth and turn on them, they'll try and kill you. They don't care. They were never your friends to begin with. You know what I mean? You were just a means to an end to them. But they'll tell you anything they can just to keep you on the hook for as long as possible. Like I said, when I gave everything up and I stopped being a perfect vessel for them to experience hedonistic, stupid lifestyles through, they tried to kill me. They came for me spiritually and attacked me, you know, and literally tried to turn my brain off at one point. And only calling on the name of Jesus Christ did it make me come back to normality. These things are monsters in that respect. They don't respect you or have any care for you in any way, shape, or form. But they prey on the ignorance. And as long as they can get people believing that they are special, they are in a better place, they are there to help people consciously expand or ascend in some way, and then they've got you. And that's why they lie. That's why they are liars. And I just want anybody who's still in that stupid, naive way of thinking about the DMT realm to think it's something special. Wake up. Snap out of it. We are way beyond that now. It's time to grow up. You know, it's time to realize that these drugs aren't going to teach you anything, and they're not going to turn you into a god. And you probably have some serious things in the real world you need to be paying attention to if you're trying to escape it all the time, you know, and you won't find the answers there. That's for sure.
Yeah, no question. You definitely nailed it with that. And so I definitely want to get into something else that I know you touch on sometimes too, relating to it. So we've kind of made it clear that the Nephilim are making some sort of a resurgence, or it's intentionally being made to look like so. I know, I don't know if it's revelation or what. I got some Bible studying to do myself, but I know it says near the end times it'll be like the times of Noah, meaning there will be all sorts of, you know, crazy things coming into existence, whether it's hybrids or the giants or things pre-flood. So the timeline, where do you think we are in the timeline? Do you think that something sort of like a rapture has already happened? Do you think that we're waiting for Jesus to come back and we're waiting for, you know, things to get really bad before they get good? And that's kind of why this is happening. And so many people are, you know, coming back to God and, you know, realizing the spiritual battle we're in.
Yeah, I mean, look, I cannot give a definitive answer on this. I can only speculate. So let's just get that down first of all. I'm not saying it is or isn't one way or the other, but I'm saying there are powerful arguments right now for both sides. It does appear at a surface level, especially through what you follow on the media, that Revelations is coming to pass right now, and we're about to go through the times of tribulation, and Jesus Christ is just around the corner, you know what I mean? And that started with Israel becoming a state again in the 40s, you know what I mean? All that type of thing. And people have been following the signs of the times ever since. You know, me too. When I first woke up, I was looking around thinking, yeah, you know, the vials are being poured out. This is it now. This is the end times. This is the revelation. Tribulation's coming. The mark of the beast is right around the corner. All that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? We're going to be martyred for our faith in Christ. I can see it all coming. The signs are clearly there. We're living in that time. But lately, I've been humoring the idea that perhaps we're way past that. And I assume you've watched some of my videos on this, which is why you're asking. But this isn't a new concept. This is called preterism. It's been around for hundreds of years. It's been around for a while. You know what I mean? People have been talking about this for decades upon decades upon decades, probably centuries. And it's the idea that in 70 AD, Christ returned then. And, you know, and the 1,000-year reign began after tribulation around that time. And after 1,000 years, that would bring us to what, like 1070 AD, let's say, 1,000 years of Christ reigning. And then there would be a little season where the devil is loosed. And it's described in Revelations 20 as just that happening. After the 1,000 years reign, the devil is released, and he's allowed to deceive the nations once more for a short while. And it seems like a lot of Christians have never bothered to really read that part and grasp what that means, because it could be that we are living in that little season. But people would argue, and I've had the arguments that, well, there's been no evidence whatsoever that Jesus Christ has reigned for 1,000 years. There's been no peace on earth for 1,000 years anywhere in history. And the animals are still killing each other. These are the usual arguments you get thrown at them, you know what I mean? Revelations is clearly passing right now. All the signs are coming. The mark of the beast is around the corner. You know what I mean? All this type of stuff. But then I think they fail to grasp that if the devil has been released and is allowed to have a short while, and we are probably a few hundred years into that now, then that history would have been covered up. You wouldn't know that Christ had reigned for 1,000 years. You wouldn't. It would all be buried. The history would have been changed. And this is what the theory comes along with. It comes along with this idea that 1,000 years of time has been added to the timeline that doesn't really exist. We're not really in 2024 now. We're actually in something like the year 1,400 and something. You know what I mean? By actual standards of, from year zero with the birth of Christ type of thing. But what the devil has done is inserted a false 1,000 years or something akin to 1,000 years. We don't really know how long it is. You know what I mean? It could be 800 years. It could be 1,600 years. Who knows? But where we actually are in history could be a complete lie. And this isn't just founded simply on a few verses in the Bible. I mean, first of all, just to box that part off, it does seem like when you actually read, the Gospels, when Jesus said, I am coming back, it sounded like he was immediately talking to the people around him when he said, this generation will not pass away before I return. He wasn't talking about us or a generation of peoples that last 2,000 years. It sounded like he was telling the people right in front of him. He even says, I think it says in Luke, it says, like, all of you here will see me come back. Now, I don't think these people have lived for 2,000 years to see him come back yet, you know what I mean? So we do have to start taking Jesus at his word here. I think in context of those verses, he really was talking in a very immediate sense. You know what I mean? And in the end of Revelations, he is saying repeatedly, I am coming quickly. I will be like a thief in the night. The time is now. The time is at hand. I am coming now. He's saying it repeatedly over and over and over and over again in Revelations, the last book of the Bible. It's just around the corner. Be ready. Not 2,000 years from now, So the evidence that people are pointing to that's physical outside of the Bible is that there is remnants that Jesus Christ has reigned on earth, and it's all the buildings that are extremely well built and designed that are incredible and beautiful and huge that are supposed to have been built by people with horses and buggies. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense when you actually start examining the architecture that exists. And this comes off the back of the whole Tartarian movement that went through the truth movement for a while as well. This clearly there was an ancient civilization or race of people that built all these wonderful buildings, the Tartarians they call them, and they were super advanced, intelligent, highly technological race who used these buildings as like energy harvesting buildings from the ether, and there must have been some kind of amazing civilization that's been covered up in history. They called them the Tartars, or the Tartarians, and then a mud flood happened, and then suddenly everything got reset, and we're just living in the remains of this ancient culture, But that's basically the millennial kingdom that they're describing there, without mentioning Jesus anywhere, And it would make sense of this Tartarian theory if you equate the biblical narrative onto it, that we reconsider where we actually are in the timeline. And this opens up a lot of questions, though, that are difficult to answer, and I'm not saying I have the answers to, but one of the main questions I'm trying to hash out with this theory, based on all this premise that I've explained. I'm not saying any of this is true. I've explained to you the premise for the theory there, the basic premise. There's a lot more deeper evidences that I can just give right now, but based on that premise then, okay, if that's true, and this is the aftermath of the millennial reign, and we're in the short season, who are we? As people, who are we right now who populate this time? And many theories have come up, because in the Bible it does say, blessed are those who take part in the first resurrection, because they get to reign with Christ for 1,000 years. But then after the 1,000 years are done, the rest of the dead will be resurrected. Now, it doesn't say when, but it could be that immediately after the 1,000-year reign of Christ is finished, the saints get to go with Jesus to the camp of saints. Whether that's a heavenly place or a place on earth is up for debate. There may be humans left who lived during the millennial reign who did not have divine bodies, maybe lived longer but were still incorruptible bodies and still had to have children. I believe the saints became immortal, but it seems like there would have been people around who didn't become immortal, who were just repopulating and continuing on through generation after generation during the millennial kingdom. But then once the camp of saints, the saints leave with Jesus and give the world over to Satan for a short season, there's still those people around. So it's possible that we are the descendants of those people who lived during the reign of Christ. And the theories to back that up are that, well, it seems like everybody was crammed in insane asylums during this period of time. There was these huge, enormous buildings left over from the millennial reign, and they basically got re-established or established or founded and then repurposed as mental asylums. And they basically, it seems like, the theory goes that they corralled all of those people who lived during the millennial reign or had memories of it from their ancestors into these insane asylums and shut them up, basically. And either you shut up talking about it or we lock you away. And then all these children were left behind, the children of all these now newly incarcerated people who have been deemed insane, who have no family or parents. And then it seems like there was this enormous influx during this time period of orphan trains just moving children all over the place, all over the countries of America and possibly the rest of the world. I don't really know. Depends on where the photography technology to prove all this was, and it seems like America may have had it more than others, but that makes kind of sense of all these orphans, these children of the parents who lived during the millennial reign, are left behind. And are we the descendants of these children who basically then spoon-fed a false history after that and no longer understand where they come from or what was going on? That's one theory. But my other theory was, well, what if we are the resurrected dead, as described in Revelations, who maybe we immediately appear after the millennial reign, not at the end of everything, as some people have predicted. What if we were resurrected as soon as Christ left, and suddenly the earth was just populated with all of these people who used to live during a time when Christ wasn't around? And this is our chance now, as spirits, as souls, to live during a time where we can know Christ, because there isn't a corner of this earth where people don't know the name Jesus Christ. The Bible is everywhere. The Gospels are everywhere. The truth is everywhere, and whether just because we can't see him physically reigning over us doesn't mean you can't know about him or the truth or his message or the gospel. So maybe this is our chance now, as people who didn't get a chance at salvation, to have it. It seems like something a loving God would do. But then people get into the whole, well, that's a reincarnation argument, and that's not a biblical concept. You don't reincarnate. And I would say actually resurrection is very much a biblical concept. The whole book is about resurrection. It's about conquering death, and Jesus resurrected like 3 people during his time when he was on earth. Reincarnation implies you come back as something else. Resurrection implies you come back as yourself and there is no change. So it's possible that happened. But so there's 2 theories there on who we are. Are we the immediately resurrected people who had a past life where we perhaps sinned and didn't know God in any way, and this is our chance to know him and be redeemed? Or are we simply just the descendants of the children who were orphaned after the millennial reign, when all the survivors were locked up in insane asylums by secret societies who were establishing all of these areas on behalf of their father, the devil, Satan himself? Who knows? But I love to speculate. If it is that, we are just the descendants of these orphans, then that means there will be a final resurrection at the end of time for the great white throne judgment. But that means we'll be resurrected in physical bodies for that judgment, if that's the case. I'm leaning more towards that the white throne judgment of God will be in the throne room of God, which is in heaven. So that implies to me that when that time comes, there won't be any life on earth anymore. Everything will be destroyed. because it's said that Satan gathers an army in his last season, encircles the camp of saints to make war with Jesus, and then fire rains down from heaven and destroys everything. And that's the end. And then white throne judgment in heaven in spirit form, I think. So that does actually lend credence to my original theory that the resurrection immediately happened as soon as Christ left. And then everyone will basically, we're just living our way towards that final destruction at the end of time now, where everyone dies, and then final judgment of everybody, and everybody is resurrected in heaven. All the souls are awakened in heaven for the final great white throne judgment. You know what I mean? Again, do I know if any of this is true? It's all based on the assumption that if we are in the little season, then this is probably how it would go down. But are we in that little season? Again, it's hard to say yes or no. I couldn't say. Fundamentally, I don't feel like it's a salvation issue. I feel like as long as you believe Jesus Christ is who he said he was, and he died and rose for our sins, and you believe on him that he is the Son of God, then you'll be saved. It's the simple good news, As long as you have that down, everything else is just speculative and not really important on the grand scale of things. Whether we're waiting for him to return in the clouds and we get to rule with him for 1,000 years, or we're waiting for the end of time with the great white throne judgment, as long as you are covered in the blood of the Lamb, in Jesus Christ, you're safe. You're saved either way. I think a lot of people are upset at this concept because their entire faith is based on the concept that they get to be raptured or something and don't get to suffer or feel any pain when everybody else has to suffer and feel pain. I think a lot of people's faith is hinging on this dispensational belief that they get to rule as gods and kings with Christ for 1,000 years. But that's a poor foundation for faith if that's what you were banking on. And, really, you should be expecting to suffer. If you're going to walk like Christ did, the guy suffered. And you can expect, it was pain and misery, and he tells you to pick up your cross and follow him at the end of the day. So, but a lot of people are very upset by this, even the thought of me even considering this. And perhaps it's okay. Perhaps I was naive because I wasn't raised in a church. I don't know what the rules of engagement are for discussing these type of concepts. I thought Christians would love to discuss these things. It helps us get closer to understanding God's word. I was very stupid to assume that, because instead people are calling me a heretic and calling it blasphemy instead, when all I have done is read the book, and understood that there is a good case for this. It's not just speculative or hearsay. There's a biblical foundation for this in the words Jesus himself spoke, and also what Revelation says. But there's also a worldly explanation for this in the evidences that are everywhere through the physical world. The remnants left behind of these amazing architectural buildings, but also the clear timeline manipulation that's taken place. Like, we're finding coins, for example, that have been coined with J853 on there. And people are saying, oh, well, that coin was made in 1853 then. It's like, it doesn't say that. It says Jesus Christ, 853 in the year of our Lord. You know what I mean? It's not, and it seems like there was a time change at some point where ones were added in front of numbers on things. It seems like there was this huge effort in some way to cover up the time of where we are. And there's evidences right in front of us for our own eyes to see, and the scriptural precedence for this. There is precedence for this belief, and I'm not willing to just throw it out the window because it might hurt some people's feelings about where they thought they were for so long. And but again, fundamentally, guys, not a salvation issue.
Yeah, and that is a lot to take in. And me and Mike just talked the other day about how him and I were both raised Catholic. Here in America, we have a thing called CCD, or some would call it Sunday school, where they kind of like just try to teach you the Bible and educate you, but for the most part, it's in like the most dry and boring, like lame format that will honestly turn most people away from God and, Jesus and religion, because it was literally like I couldn't remember a single thing I liked about it. They made it more like school and like disciplinary, and when the stuff that we're talking about, like you said, it all has a biblical foundation. It all is like canon to the Christian worldview and lore, and it's so interesting, like all the crazy speculations on where we are, and like everything that, like, if you accept stories from the Bible, you already believe in giants. You already believe in interdimensional beings, like, interplaying with our world. You believe in resurrection. You believe that there's going to be a millennial reign and all this. And yeah, not a lot of people know about that. And if they would have, done a better job at these CCDs or educating people about, the Bible, God, Jesus, his message, the end times, like, we probably would have been a lot more receptive of it or more into it than we were. But instead it kind of served to just make it bland and uninteresting and turn us away from it.
The whole church thing for me, I just couldn't. I wasn't getting enough from the way churches are today. They don't teach what really needs to be taught for our generation, I don't think. And in a way, I kind of get my fellowship through the people I meet online now. Like I said, I have this Telegram group with about almost 600 members now. And in a way, it's like a church. We are talking about deep theological concepts all the time. We pray for one another, and we show each other support as well. And I think that's the age we live in now. It's a different time. I don't think the churches of old, shall we call them now, are going to be enough to really get the message that needs to be out now. And in a way, I'm not a part of any particular denomination, but I suppose this has created a new type of denomination with the spread of the internet and these odd topics in this conspiracy style, truth style way of talking about theology, in its own right, is kind of its own denomination in a new type of way. But I wouldn't really know what to call it. But yeah, again, I am always fascinated hearing other people, especially Americans' experiences growing up in these churches, that are all over America, these many different denominations, and I always describe it as no one quite does Christianity like an American. There's something about it, it's very different has a different flavor than most of the rest of the world. Same for Africa as well. No one quite does Christianity like an African either. But they go hard into Christianity because they are deep in the spiritual warfare on that continent. They see the voodoo, the ritualistic ancestor spirit, demonic possession stuff on a daily basis. They grew up in it, you know what I mean? They know it's real. There's no question in their mind that demons are real and that Jesus Christ can save you. They are serious, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful there are at least some places on earth that are taking it very seriously, but I feel like in England at least, it's the spiritual warfare type stuff, it's dead. It's done. We do not have that. And in America, you do have the odd church that's really into that type of thing, especially the charismatic type movement as well. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm rambling now. I'll let you go on.
I really think your work is serious, though, and important, and you're changing that, though, too, because as silly as it might seem on the surface, and when you think about it, the clown focus is, bringing people to God or helping bring awareness to the spiritual war being related to clowns. But no, honestly, your work is doing a lot for that, and it's very deep, very comprehensive. So shout out to your channel. I know you're live streaming it right now, but anyone who's listening to this on our podcast, definitely follow his YouTube channel, Understanding Conspiracies, where you're on episode 41 now of just Nephilim looking like clowns.
I think I'm working on the 46th episode now.
Let's go. In a book as well, right?
Yeah. But again, I cover many topics like we've been discussing in this podcast. You know what I mean? It's not just the clown stuff. I suppose the clown stuff is like a side project of mine that's really just kept rolling, and it's brought a lot of traction to my channel, that's for sure. I'm writing the book on the subject. I'm hoping once the book's written, I can put a pin in it for a while, maybe. And once everything that needs to be said is said, it's done. But this is the issue with the clown topic, the more I keep scratching, the more that keeps coming out. That makes it, because this connects to a lot of things. It's, even though it's fundamentally centered around why we have a clown, I go into so many other tendrils outside of that topic just to try and get to the point of the clown again. You know what I mean? It's it goes really deep. I mean, this is a fun one. The music industry, for example, and art in general. I found the secret. The secret to becoming a famous artist in any industry is not to have talent, and it's not necessarily even who you know, because that's the argument, isn't it? It's not what you know, it's who you know. No, the real secret is to dress like a crazy psychedelic, pale-skinned, red-lipped, wild-haired clown monster, and you will be elevated. It's that simple. The more idols they can get that dress like a clown or something akin to a Nephilim featured ancestor spirit worship clown garb, the better. Because if you can create an idol out of that image, you will get the public to emulate it, and that creates more channels. It's why every year there's a new resurgence of some kind of clown idol as well. There's a new Joker that gets released, or there's a new Harley Quinn, or there's a new clown serial killer, or maybe you will get a new reboot of It, or an unnecessary third installment to It, even though it shouldn't have 3 installments, you know what I mean? The next Joker 2 is coming around next year, I think, as well, isn't it? Followed. So this is the point. They will always revive that symbol of the clown in media in order to get more people to dress like them at Halloween. Halloween, which is the Celtic holiday of Samhain, which is when the veil is thinnest between the spirit realm and the physical realm. If you can get more people dressing like a clown during that time, you're creating more channels for the demons to inhabit people's bodies, and that's optimal for the secret societies behind orchestrating this symbol this symbol who works with the demons, you know. And again, you'll find that some of the highest, most famous idols on the earth that have existed, David Bowie is a good example. Well, his main persona, his Ziggy Stardust, was of a psychedelic, pale-skinned, red-haired, clown-looking monster. Although he called it an interdimensional alien of some kind, I believe, you know, the cover story. But the aesthetics are the same. And it's not just him. There's thousands of examples of artists who do this and get famous because of it. And is it because, well, not only is it because if you channel a demon, you can gain power, which is what the Africans understand when they do their ancestor spirit worship stuff, but it's kind of selling your soul for rock and roll, isn't it? You make me a great guitar player, I'll let you possess my body. That's basically the deal they make with the devil, you know what I mean, with the demons. But I think if they know that's the point, then they're doing it for personal gain in that respect, along with the fame, for skill, you know, that they don't otherwise have. But if they don't believe in demons and they end up dressing like that anyway, you can be certain that a scout will pick them up who's a part of the controlled Illuminati music industry and will just elevate them anyway. You know what I mean? Give them the power, the fame, the money, so they think they're special, so that way they can get more of the people in the earth to look at them as gods and then emulate them and also dress like a clown demon monster of some kind. Hey, it's all about opening portals. It's about opening channels in some way. That's what the costume's used for. That's what the symbol of a clown is used for. It's for creating channels to the demonic realm. And they utilize it in all industries, especially the music industry. Now I've said it, you will see it everywhere. You will see white-faced, pale-faced up, red lipstick wearing, big black eye makeup everywhere in the music industry. Kiss is a great example of this, a bit on the nose, you know what I mean? But Kiss is a very overt example of the same thing, even with the tongue sticking out as well, which is a very common motif across all representations of the demons throughout all cultures. The Gorgon of Greece is a good example. Kali of India is another example. The sun god in the center of the Aztec calendar is another example of the tongue sticking out monster. Most Japanese Oni demons as well. It's a very common motif when representing the Nephilim, the tongue sticking out, which goes hand in hand with the Joker style attitude, with the clownish motifs as well. You know, it's all connected in that respect. But the costume is a powerful tool. It's used for specific purposes. So I feel sorry for the idiots out there who dress like clowns because they think they're just trying to entertain children. They don't know what they don't know what they're messing with at the end of the day, you know. But yeah, well, sorry, I rambled on a bit there.
No, it's
I'll come back.
You are clearly a well-researched, well-spoken individual, and I'm sure you get it all the time. Tom mentioned it at first. You know, when someone says the Nephilim are clowns, you think, okay, that's ludicrous, but then you hear you lay out your research, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is real. Like there's real substance here. This goes very deep. So I know we just but scratched the surface, probably just a fraction of what you have, but we're just getting this ball rolling here at Conspiracy and Chill, and to have you on so early on is super awesome for us. So we thank you, man, and we'd love to have you back, you know, in the future once we do add video, because that adds so much to your presentation. So thank you, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys. This has been great. I appreciate the invite.
So, did it live up to your expectations?
definitely. It was great to be talking with him, get some first-hand conversation with him. I've listened to a lot of his stuff on his channel. I will say he pieces it together extremely well. If
Very
you guys
well.
are
Very
skeptical about the title or the idea, I would say that it also is, it's attention grabbing, but kind of like as he explains though, it wouldn't necessarily be the Nephilim looked like clowns, but more so his work would be summed up as clowns' image is based off of the Nephilim, and it is a veneration of the Nephilim.
Nephilims look like clowns, not clowns look like Nephilims, or clowns look like Nephilims.
Yeah, the image of the clown is intentionally based off of a caricature of the Nephilim in a way to, make the public participate or witness or, in some way give their energy or attention to the Nephilim with or without knowing, or dress like one if they were dressing like a clown, and kind of bring the idea of these beings to the collective conscious of everybody.
He's very well spoken. He's not a lunatic. I'd like to think I have a fairly decent lunatic fucking wacko meter, and he doesn't chime me at all, like no more than any average dude, he's not a crazy loon. He is a regular guy that has put a whole lot of time into his work, and it clearly shows. He's interesting, and I can't wait to have him back, because by then hopefully we got video, and his presentation is fucking obviously a lot better with pictures. So you could definitely go to his YouTube channel, right, Tom? Check him out there.
And if you guys do check out his YouTube channel, he has another series where it's like tips for truthers and just generally talking about, like being part of this community. And one of the things he emphasizes is his presentation, because if you're super intense or you come across crazy, and I know I've been guilty of this with people in my personal life, you get passionate and you start just kind of raving and ranting about these topics, and you're throwing such insane, on the surface claims at people. They're not going to accept it in a frantic manner. They're going to just brush you off too, and they don't want to sound like a nut job like you. But the way he just does it with his polite and proper accent and great calm presentation, it definitely lends itself better than to be like, no dude, listen, you gotta understand the Nephilim, the clowns, the Masons. Like, no, his presentation is great. Definitely check him out.
And then check us out too, Two Truth Seekers, on all the social media platforms, Patreon. What else do we got?
Just support the channel, share it, check out me and Mike's personal profiles if you like, but we're trying to get that Instagram for the podcast growing, trying to get some more downloads and listens on these episodes, so definitely share it.
Yeah, and if you do enjoy the podcast and you want to help out, but you don't want to help out financially, I don't blame you. But if you do, that's cool too. Well, what you could do is just go and give the podcast a 5-star review. That really does help, believe it or not. So I think that's all I got. What do you think, dude? Are Nephilim clowns?
Yes.
The greatest prison that people live in is the fear of what other people think. What happened to me as a result of all the ridicule I went through is that I stepped out of the fear of what other people thought.